Hey guys, this is Illusion Podfic, and today we're going to be reading Independent Varials by the J-Bomb. The summary is, Bruce just wants to get his presentation over and done with before he passes out. 4 juvenile pirates do what they do best, sabotage. Or, young Batfamily AU, where Bruce's kids are once again causing havoc and undermining his street cred with the Justice League. The ages for this one is Dick is 15, Jason and Cass are 13, Steph and Tim are 11, Duke is 10, and Damien is 7. And without further ado, let's hop right in. Bruce was as petty as he was determined, which is why 4 members of the Justice League stood before him in the Batcave. Bruce, for lack of a more dignified term, was grounded. And while he wasn't stupid enough to disobey a direct order from Alfred, he wasn't above finding a loophole in orders to get work done. It's almost like Alfred thought Bruce had never been stabbed before, or broken an arm, or dislocated an ankle, or bruised a kidney. Bruce thought the mother henning was uncalled for. Not the point. The fact was, Alfred had said he wasn't allowed to leave the manor for Batman business. He never said Bruce couldn't bring Batman business to the manor. Said business being the new long-distance communicator prototype that sat in front of him, designed with enough range to reach the edges of the solar system from Earth herself. It is compatible with both Amazonian and man-made technologies, which means the signal will be accessible from inside the boundaries of Themyscira. Bruce finished the presentation with a nod to Diana, trying to make the fact he was leaning heavily on the workbench look suave rather than pained. He supposed keeping the weight off his tightly wrapped ankle was a valid explanation should anyone question him. Not that they would. He knew how he looked at the moment. Steady was not likely to be an adjective thrown around. Thick white bandages wrapped the majority of his torso, left arm resting against his chest in a sling. He'd neglected to put on a shirt, like every other morning for the past few days, what with a stab wound needing daily dressing changes, and he was relatively covered anyway. In hindsight, he thought, this was a foolish oversight. His injuries were already burning from holding an upright position for so long, and he knew it was only a matter of time before blood visibly soaked through the bandages. It was one thing to let the previously mentioned mother hen see him like that, but his co-workers? Some of the most powerful, untouchable people on the planet? Bruce could live without that kind of embarrassment. The sooner he could wrap this up, the better. Pain and possible humiliation aside, the looming threat of his children discovering the secret meeting was also a strong secondary motivator. He wasn't sure how much longer they'd honor the unexplained request to stay out of the Batcave. Curiosity kills cats, not bats, except Selena, was a phrase thrown in his face every time he tried to enforce a no-snooping rule, no matter the duration or permanency of said rule. Bruce wasn't even convinced the overused catchphrase made sense. Regardless, his estimations told him he had about 10 more minutes apiece, maximum. Any questions? He asked in a tone that did not at all invite questions. Yeah, Hal said. How's the family? You know, the secret one, that you kept a secret. Did he say peace? He meant relative peace. Bruce wanted to punch Hal in the face, and then himself, because he honestly should have seen that one coming. Ever since the unplanned and unfortunate reveal, the few Justice League members now privy to his children's existence took any and every opportunity to remind Bruce that they haven't gotten over it. At this point, Bruce was sure it was less about making their offense and indignation known and more about watching him grind his teeth down to a fine powder in annoyance. That would explain why Hal was the most common offender. Bruce fixed the man with his signature Batman glare. Dick had once told him it looked like he was trying to make people's head explode with his mind. Jason said it made him look constipated. Regardless, it took mere seconds for Hal to crack. Fine. How secure is the signal? Hal leaned past Barry for a closer look. Bruce was ready to slap his hand, should it wander. The signal can bypass the firewalls and restrictions of any satellite it uses, Bruce said shortly, making it undetectable unless you know what to look for. Only I know what to look for. He didn't mention that by the end of the week, Tim would make sure he knew what to look for as well. Hal gave an impressed huff, which is about as close to complimenting Bruce as he was going to get. Clark shot him an approving smile. Your work is admirable as always, Diana said, patting him on the shoulder. Bruce expertly suppressed a wince as the touch sent shockwaves through his body. It's really nothing, Diana, he replied smoothly, as though this new technology wasn't groundbreaking. He was humble like that. Fuck, he really needed to sit down. Now, access to these devices and their frequency will be, of course, limited to higher-ranking members of the League until... A loud shriek echoed through the cave. jarring Bruce enough for a pained hiss to escape his clenched teeth. It took him a second longer than usual to register it as one of joy rather than terror. The slap of bare feet on stone grew louder as two small figures came into view, racing down the stairs to the Batcave at a breakneck speed. Literally, they were going to break their necks. And instinctive, panicked, "Slow down," flew past his lips. Both kids stumbled in surprise, and Bruce's heart jolted for the third time in as many seconds as he watched them regain balance. "What if I told you about running in the cave?" he demanded, forgetting for a moment why exactly he'd sectioned off the Batcave from the usual gremlin stopping grounds in the first place. Two tiny pirates in ill-fitting clothes, wooden swords clasped tight in their hands, stood frozen halfway down the stretching stone staircase, wide-eyed and open-mouthed. They weren't looking at Bruce. Tim's head was tilted back to see past the brim of the captain's hat, scaring his vision. Jason slowly lifted his eye patch, as though what lay before him was just a result of hindered depth perception. "Hey, Bruce, the Justice League is in the Batcave," Jason said slowly, eyes flickering briefly to his father as though to confirm Bruce was, in fact, aware. "Yes," Bruce said. "Hi, Wonder Woman." The boy turned a charming smile up to the Amazonian. Never let it be said Jason didn't prioritize. "Hello, Jason," Diana chuckled. "Do feel free to call me Diana." "Oh, I couldn't possibly," Jason insisted quickly before his face soured again. "Hey, Bruce, why didn't you tell us the Justice League was in the Batcave?" He was yet to lower his sword. Bruce somehow didn't think Tim was the target anymore. "Justice League business is confidential, Jay. Cats, not bats, except Selena," Tim said with authority, pushing the large hat back up on his forehead. It was adorable. "Not the time, Bruce." Clark raised an eyebrow at the admittedly confusing statement without context. "I'm sure Bruce, your dad, need be bored down here is all," the man tried to placate. Bruce was silently grateful to pass the metaphorical talking stick for the moment. He was pretty sure the next noise coming out of his mouth would be a damning whine of agony. "We were just having a look at the new comlink. Nothing interesting." Never mind. Clark had doomed them all. "What?" Tim squeaked, looking betrayed. "Bruce, you said you'd show me those." "I still can, bud," Bruce assured quickly, trying to keep the tightness from his voice. He shot Clark a look he hoped translated vaguely to, "Are you trying to sabotage my life?" "Yeah, but..." Tim's eyes widened slightly, darting to the surrounding superheroes, then to the ground, as though he had forgotten their presence and his indignation. Bruce wouldn't be surprised. Tim was to new tech, like a moth to a flame. Or maybe a shark to blood was more apt. "Well then, I'm sure everyone has places to be," Bruce began pointedly. "You are an extremely slow steed, Brown," a high, haughty voice chastised. Bruce looked up to see Steph piggybacking Damien down the stairs after their brothers. The cavalry had arrived, it would seem. "Watch it, twerp. I could totes launch you down these stairs right now," Steph growled back. Neither had noticed the audience yet, both focused on Steph's balance with each step and their own rapid-fire conversation. Neither Tim nor Jason spoke in warning. "You wouldn't have the gall," Damien snapped, the threat in his voice entirely undermined by the floral bandana covering his head. Steph's sword hung by her side, tied to her belt loop with a similar flowery material. Bruce has to admire the resourcefulness. "Always wanted to brain a bitch," the girl sneered back. "Stephanie!" Bruce finally exclaimed over Hal's poorly muffled snort. Honestly, where did they learn that type of language? Two heads jerked up in sync. "Bruce!" Steph yelled back. "And friends!" she added as she catalogued the ensemble. "Why didn't you tell us you had a playdate, Bee?" Bruce rubbed a hand down his face and winced when it hit his busted lip. "Will someone explain what you're all doing here? You know you aren't allowed in the cave right now. Where's Alfred?" Alfred, being the only person his children wouldn't dare to disobey directly. Though where loopholes were concerned, they all took after Bruce, unfortunately. "Making Cass and Duke untie Dick," Tim said matter-of-factly. Emergency mental break supplied. "What? Why did you tie up Dick?" Bruce demanded, making an aborted gesture as everything twinged. "I didn't tie up Dick. Cass and Duke did," Tim assured desperately, as though the perpetrator rather than the crime itself was Bruce's main concern. "Me neither," Jason added unprompted, self-aware enough to know it wouldn't be unreasonable for Bruce to assume he had. "What did Dick do?" Barry asked very uncoyly. This was the most engaged Bruce had seen him all afternoon. He tried not to take it personally. Hal looked similarly curious. "He freed Damien," Jason shrugged, raising more questions than he answered. "From unlawful imprisonment?" The youngest screeched, flailing and kicking enough for Steph to wobble in surprise. enough for Steph to lose her balance. Time slowed just enough for Bruce to experience all forms of terror as she tipped towards the steep, unforgiving stone steps, Damien clinging like a limpet to her back. He instinctively lunged forward just before he felt a rush of displaced air. Bruce barely caught a glimpse of Barry and Clark catching Damien and Steph respectively when his own ankle gave out and he crashed to his knees. He gasped sharply, trying in vain to find a coherent thought in amongst the mental screams of "ow" and "fucking ow." "Bruce!" Diana exclaimed. "B!" Jason yelled at the same time, dropping his sword with a clatter and rushing forward. Tim hot on his heels. "I'm fine," Bruce said tightly. You know, like a liar. Breathing through the pain-induced nausea, he forced himself to look up, relieved to find both Steph and Damien safe and on solid ground. They stared back at him with wide, worried eyes. "You do realize the whole reason you're on house arrest is to stop this from happening, you ass?" Jason growled, ignoring the fact his eye patch had flopped back down in the commotion. Bruce didn't know how to feel about being chastised by a pirate. "Jason," he began in an attempt to take control of the situation. "Shut it!" The 5'0" scourge of the sea hissed. Bruce felt the immature urge to groan in annoyance, instead forced to groan in pain as Jason prodded his stomach unhelpfully. "Yeah, that's what I thought." Bruce accepted Diana's help getting to his feet, resolutely avoiding the look of both worry, his colleagues, and parental disappointment, his children, ironically. Every injury clamored for his attention as he straightened. He did his best to keep the discomfort off his face. Jason ducked under his arm as soon as the opportunity presented itself, supporting Bruce's weight as best he could. Tim tucked himself into Bruce's other side, his hat abandoned on the ground, leaving his large blue eyes free to stare up at Bruce accusingly. "You're bleeding again," he said. Bruce looked down to see red dotting the once white bandages. Alfred was not going to be impressed. He rarely was when it came to Bruce's abysmal self-preservation skills. "By the power invested in me, I hereby adjourn this meeting," or something, Jason said loudly, addressing the ensemble. Bruce is having his cave privileges revoked, and he will now be going to his room to think about what he's done. "Bruce is an adult and will not be lectured by his own son," Bruce said sharply, trying and failing to ignore Barry and Hal snickering. "Will both of you shut up?" "No, I don't think we will," Hal grinned widely. "Be nice, or you might lose your computer privileges, too." "I am not incapable of hurting you, Jordan," Bruce said dangerously. The validity of said statement was debatable, as he was currently relying heavily on Jason to keep him upright. Hal smiled, didn't falter. Clark stepped forward, the fretful look on his face already setting off alarm bells in Bruce's head. "Jason's right. You need rest. Let me carry you to your room." "No." "I don't think you should be walking right." "No." "Bruce, I'm not dying." Bruce did not appreciate babying. "I wouldn't speak so soon. We haven't told Alfie yet," Steph pointed out. "But he'll probably be less mad if you let Superman carry you up the stairs." For the first time in her life, Brad makes a good point, Damien added, jumping back as Steph swung at him. It would be a tactically advantageous decision. Batman, however, was very worried of Alfred Pennyworth. Bruce sighed, drawn out and heavy. Is this what it felt like to be marched to the gallows? "Fine," he conceded unhappily. In the blink of an eye, Bruce was being held against Clark's chest like some sort of damsel in distress. He glowered, resolutely not looking at Clark's self-satisfied expression. "You should all come up. Alfred just got the cookies out of the oven," Steph said cheerily. "Absolutely not." Bruce shot down the invitation before anyone could respond. "But Alfie said you need to socialize or you'll stunt your emotional growth," she lamented. "Emotional growth?" Hal wheezed. Barry slapped him on the back when he choked on his own spit. "Steph, no." "Steph, yes, actually. Let's go." With that, she grabbed Tim and Damien's hand and began dragging them back up the stairs before they could protest. "Hurry up or I'll rat you out to Alfred before you have the chance to explain yourself," she called over her shoulder. Bruce waited until the last echoes of their footsteps rang to the silence before acknowledging anyone else in the room. Diana, Barry, Hal, and Clark were all watching him, waiting for him to speak. Good to know his kids didn't entirely outrank him in the eyes of the Justice League. Jason's arms were crossed tightly as he stared at the red patch on Bruce's stomach. He looked far too serious and worried for a boy in full dress-up. That was Bruce's fault, which meant it was also his responsibility to alleviate some of it. He was definitely going to regret this decision. "Alfred's my butler," he said tiredly. "He's been dying to meet you all." Alright guys, and that is the end of Independent Varials by the J-Bomb. Hope you guys liked it, and I'll see you in the next video.